All right, what's up, people? There you have it, an hour and a half of the most boring political talk in the history of modern American politics. I mean, that was painful for a lot of reasons. I'm getting a lot of shit on Twitter at the moment because I was more critical of Kaine than I was of Pence. My main takeaway, I'll start with my main takeaway. By the way, I got my team here working with me, so you can tweet questions at me. You can comment in YouTube right there. If you're on Patreon, you get first priority, so you can comment on Patreon and Facebook, wherever. We'll find you. I'll be happy to answer questions and talk about the whole thing. Going with the Stone IPA tonight. They do not sponsor us, but they could if they wanted to. All right. Basically, that was incredibly boring. And the thing is, it shouldn't have been boring because most people in the country are disgusted with both of our choices, right? You've got the fringe that love Hillary and the fringe that love Trump, but then everyone else is either voting for them begrudgingly or not going to vote or not happy in general or doesn't know what to do. So these people should have had some value. This should have been important at some level, especially when you factor in that Trump, I think, is 70 and Hillary's 69. I mean, these are not young people that are going to be president, especially when you factor in that the country is so polarized and that we have two people who I don't think are the most ethical candidates ever in the history of the United States. Impeachment could be possible. I mean, one of these two guys could be the president, is my point. So this had opportunity to get into it. First I thought the moderator was just a little stiff. It was just question and then nothing. So it was just dry, and also the camera angles were weird. So they were never really looking at each other. They were kind of looking off towards the sides of the television. So it didn't make for great TV, just, aesthetically like that. But anyway, so first off, I'll start with Kaine first. For all the people that don't like when Trump interrupts, he interrupted relentlessly and endlessly and with that like half-assed smile on his face. And what I more so didn't like about him, it's not the interrupting. It's a debate, so I like seeing healthy interrupting. I thought in the presidential debate last week, there were some moments of interruption that I thought some of the best stuff happened. It allows for a good comeback if you got it. We shouldn't be afraid of that. On one hand, we all complain, they all act like robots, and they're all about talking points and blah, blah, blah. And then the second there's some human emotion, everyone says, they're interrupting and they're complaining. That makes no sense. I would much rather I would get the moderator out of the way and have them just go at it. Just go at it for an hour and a half, or have several different types of debates. So you have one with a moderator, you have one without a moderator, you have one where they have to just answer questions from the crowd, you have one in Thunderdome, whatever it is. That's what I would do. Anyway, so Kaine interrupted a lot. That in and of itself, I don't have a problem with, just as I didn't have a real problem with it when Trump did it last week. I thought the bigger issue with Kaine was that he just kept repeating all of the things that everyone says about Trump that are like sort of half-truths or not quite truths. The thing about Putin being a strong leader. I mean, I saw when Trump said that to Matt Lauer, and he basically was like, he's a strong leader. That doesn't mean I like him. That doesn't mean I think he's good for his people. Something to that effect. Like everything he said was just kind of not exactly the way it is. He wasn't saying all Mexicans, like all of these things. That's not defending any of the things that Trump says. But Kaine just came off as just that smug, elitist, just whatever. Pence, on the other hand, is like a walking Ambien commercial. He's extremely calm, almost to the point of sleeping. And there's something that comes off, I think, very insincere about him. But when I tweeted that, a lot of people were pushing back on me, saying he's just measured and confident and whatever. I don't know a tremendous amount about him beyond what most people know about him. But yeah, there's something that seems a little stiff or whatever. They needed just some good, healthy like debate about ideas. I thought Kaine's best moment was when he said that he doesn't let his personal faith get involved in politics, and when he was talking about the death penalty. Pence, if you're a right to life person, Pence's answer on that was good. It was solid. It was profound. That's not the way I feel about it. I can understand the way when people think about that. I'm not some crazy person that tries to demonize every single person that is not pro-choice. Although I personally am pro-choice, and I agree more with what Tim Kaine said about letting a woman choose. I would let a woman choose, and it's a horrible decision. And it's not something, women are not having abortion parties. They don't want to have abortions, generally speaking. So I thought they both had a couple of good moments. It was just nothing. Like, there was just nothing here when there was real opportunity. And a few people were tweeting at me saying that this proves why Trump is so good for the election, because at least there's some excitement versus just seeing two standard politicians do their standard thing. Anyway, so we'll do some questions, comments, thoughts, all that. Yeah, it was, they didn't give us much. I just don't think they gave us much. Kaine saying that we're safer from terrorism now, I thought was a strange line. I don't think anyone feels that way. And his reasoning behind that was that Osama bin Laden is dead, which is true. But Osama bin Laden wasn't the only terrorist, and you cut off the head of the snake and new heads arise, right? And then the thing about the Pence is taking a selfie right now with the kid, and then his other thing was about the Iran nuclear deal. I thought Pence did make a good point about the Iran nuclear deal, which even if you're 100% for the deal, when the deal expires, I don't remember offhand what year it is. I think it's in maybe 12 or 15 years. Someone can comment down below and let me know. Then there are no regulations anymore. So it's a temporary stopping. If you believe it works, that this thing that they signed works, then it's a temporary stoppage, not a permanent stoppage. Beyond that, definitely Pence's biggest problem for sure was defending some of the things that Trump has said. As I said before, Kaine was saying them in a way that wasn't quite honest, I don't think, but Pence needed a better reaction to that. And that's also what tripped up Trump last week, is that he can't really defend some of the crazy things that he says. I'm off script, that's why everybody loves me, but then I have to defend some of the things, even if it's taken slightly out of context. That's part of politics too. So you got to grow up and be able to defend it. I would say the net winner here, if there's a winner, and first off, all the polls that you're going to see now and on all the networks, they can tell you who won and who lost. A win and a loss means jack shit unless an actual person changed their vote. So how many people do you think actually changed their vote because of this? I mean, anyone watching this right now, I'd love to know in the YouTube comments right this second, or anywhere where you're watching on Twitter, did you change your vote for Hillary Clinton or for Donald Trump because of something that you just saw in the VP debate? They know this. The VP debate and the VP choice in general barely ticks anything one way or another. So I don't sense that this is going to do anything. I'd say in terms of wins and losses, look, everyone is so on their own team at the moment, and I really do try my best to not be that. I try to see things as objectively as possible. But everyone's so on their team that, yeah, again, if you like Clinton, you like Kaine. If you like Trump, you like Pence. Okay, fine. I would say basically, though, it was a net win in terms, if we're just playing the game, right? It was a net win for Pence because Kaine, with all of his smugness and his little attacks, and he comes off as a little whiny or something. I would say that by Pence being a little calmer or something, that it was a win in that way. Does that change one single vote in this entire country of 300-something million people? I'm not so sure. All right, do you want to throw some questions out? Oh, we got questions coming in right here. Okay, faith questions, why do they still exist? So that's a good one, and it's such a damn shame. We are not governed by faith. And here I will give Tim Kaine credit for his answer, as I did a second ago. What he said is, I have faith. I was Irish Catholic, brought up in the church, Jesuit, something or other, blah, blah, blah. But in terms of public policy, the law of the land was for the death penalty, and I didn't let my personal religious feelings get involved. So that's a perfectly fine answer. It shouldn't be. We should not be talking about faith at all. And I think a lot of countries look at us and see this as something that's really, really silly. You are entitled to believe whatever you want, as long as you're not infringing on the rights of other people. And actually, you're allowed to believe in things that infringe on the rights of other people. You can't put them into action, right? So that's where Tim Kaine made a nice distinction. I believe in a certain thing, but as a public policy maker and as an executive, I'm not going to instill it on other people. So, okay, nice moment, right? As a general rule, though, we should be governed by one document. And it's not the Bible, and it ain't the Quran yet, and it ain't the New Testament. It's the Constitution. And in the Constitution, we have a separation of church and state, and that's it. So this whole thing about faith, yeah, if you derive some joy in life or some inner peace in life because of faith, then good for you. And I don't think you're a better person for having faith. And I don't think I just don't. I wish we didn't have to focus on it the way that we do. That being said, we only talked about it for about 3 minutes here, and I don't think there was any sense that did we talk about it at all? Was there any faith question in the first debate? I'm not so sure. Someone said, I like Dave, I like your show, but he's pissed at the left and it appears to occasionally blind him. Human. Yeah, possibly. I am so fed up with what I thought or what I think is my side, what I've seen happen to the left related to free speech and screaming racist, Islamophobe, bigot, all of that stuff, transphobe, all of that garbage at people, silencing people from talking, lying about people, dishonest attacks, all of that. I've seen so much of it from my guys. That does not mean the right doesn't do it. It doesn't mean the right doesn't do it. But what would it matter if a liberal was just attacking the right relentlessly? Everyone's doing that. I've been trying to clean up my side. So if occasionally I come off as a little not even-handed, I suppose, or whatever, or heavy-handed, I'm not perfect. I do my best. I really do try to be fair. But I think that's a valid criticism. And I'm not perfect. Believe it or not, I'm not perfect. And I accept that. I came to that conclusion through my faith. All right. Let's see. Dave, do you think the moderator was fair? Yeah, I mean, I didn't see anything one way or another. She was actually completely benign and barely part of the operation. Okay, what else do we got here? What about Jill Stein? You know, look, at this point with the third party thing, most of you that are watching this, you probably saw my video on Gary Johnson, and I've subsequently explained my feelings about Gary. Since then, he has made just epic gaffe after epic gaffe. He's making potheads look dumb. I don't like that. Yeah, the guy, he's just really crumbled, and it's really disappointing. He doesn't seem to have like a 7th grader's basic knowledge of geography or just how politics works or anything. It's very disappointing for me. But my whole point was that I wanted to get him to 15% to get another idea in the debate. By the way, I would have been for trying to get Jill Stein to 15% if she had even a remote chance. At that point, she was polling at like 2% a month ago, and Gary was around 8%. So there was a remote chance he could get to 15. I would say at this point, neither one of them are going anywhere. They'll both siphon off some votes. The interesting thing is, I don't know which way Gary Johnson siphoned some votes off more from. So Jill Stein, if she gets 2%, most likely that's at the expense of Hillary, or it's people that just weren't going to vote. But for Gary Johnson, he's expressed admiration for Hillary a lot. So if you really don't like Hillary, let's say you say Hillary's really corrupt, or she's, gone to war more than you like and all that. So you like the idea of libertarianism, you might be inclined to vote for Gary Johnson instead of Hillary. Traditionally, you would think that a libertarian candidate would draw more from a conservative, more from someone on the right. I don't know that that's going to happen this time. I'm really not sure. But I feel bad sort of about what happened with Gary Johnson, because this was the year, if there ever was going to be a year for a third party, maybe not to win this year, but to really show people, guys, motherfuckers, wake up. There's some other choices here besides Clinton and Trump. This was the year. And instead, the libertarians, unfortunately, and they didn't have many better choices, by the way, but they put up a guy who was not a particularly good libertarian, didn't even fight for most libertarian values, and really who had very little knowledge about a lot of things that most people could have. Am I going to have to run in 2020? What a pain in the ass. Let's see. To that point, somebody said, I thought that Austin Peterson was the libertarian candidate who could have swung me from Trump. So if you're a true libertarian, I've gone back and forth with Austin Peterson a little bit. I think we had him booked and then something happened. But he tried to get the nomination from Gary Johnson. He's a younger guy, more of a pure libertarian. He's one of these guys, I don't even think he's for driver's licenses, which I've mocked the libertarians for in the past. But I'll try to get him on, and he's an interesting guy. Let's see. Hey, Dave, was tonight's debate gross and racist? There was nothing particularly gross and racist about it. I would say the only thing gross about it was that Kaine just repeatedly kept saying things that were not really quotes by Trump. Now, yes, Trump does these things all the time too. But if you want your side to be better, then they have to behave better. And I don't think he won. I don't think he won much support. You needed to look. These guys, both of them are unlikable, right? So Trump. I know a lot of people like a lot of, like Trump, like the supporters that like Trump really love him. I don't see a lot of love behind the Clinton operation, but maybe it's there and I'm just not seeing it because there's not as vocal in the online world that I'm part of. But clearly what Clinton needed was more of a likable guy behind her. Now, he usually comes off as somewhat likable. He speaks in Spanish, ay Dios mío, fine, but he did not come off as likable tonight. And I do think, so I think that kind of hurts her. Okay, let's see. A couple people have asked me to get on Ron Paul. I would love to get Ron Paul on. We've been trying. You guys know we're partnered up with Learn Liberty now. They're sending us a guest a month, and I think they're working on him. And we've tried a bunch of different ways. If you know Ron Paul, tell him to swing on by. I'd like to. I would love to talk to him. I think it would be a great conversation. You know, interestingly, look, the vice president, barring something horrific happening, barring a medical problem or an assassination or an impeachment, the VP pretty much does nothing. What has Joe Biden really done in these last 8 years? You know, watch Veep. I mean, the vice president's not doing that much. So, you know, but even before Joe Biden, you know, actually, well, that one's, I guess, not a good example because that was one case where the VP did do a lot because Dick Cheney obviously was the architect for a lot of what George W. Bush was doing. I tend to think that with Donald Trump and with Hillary Clinton, they would not cede that kind of power to their VP. Oh, somebody asked, what's the status of Thomas Sowell? So he has a new book out, and we finally got the good contact. We reached out to him. We made a little headway. I'm not totally sure of where it stands right now, but we're in contact at least. So that's where it starts. Yeah, so hopefully it'll happen. Let's see, what else? You know, look, we're so in this thing right now. We're 34 days away right now from this thing, and we've been pounding at it. It was interesting how many people online were saying, well, I don't really know anything about this guy, or I haven't seen anything about this guy, or they were, for the first time, really seeing them. Which just goes to show, it's like we're so caught up in the sensationalism that really talking about the issues, you know, doesn't happen that much. You know, one way, if you wanted to slam Pence, if you want to really beat Pence, and Kaine missed a real opportunity, Pence has been hugely anti-gay, and pushed for anti-gay legislation and all that. Regardless of your personal feelings about gay people, it's a non-issue at this point. That gay people should be treated equally and have the same right to marry, and that's really all gay people wanted. We didn't want extra rights, we just wanted the same rights. So I think Kaine missed a real opportunity, and he could have done it related to the whole thing about faith, because obviously Pence's feelings about gay people is somehow formed by his faith. You know, I guess not that you should love every person equally or something. Didn't Jesus say something like that? But that you should not do it with a guy or something. Don't lay with a guy. I mean, it would have been an interesting thing. You can see I'm not a biblical scholar here. The point is that that was an opportunity for Kaine, and he missed it. And I think it would have been a valid one and a good one. If you were moderating the debate, what question would you ask either side of the candidates? Very simply, I would ask them, and I would push them on this beyond what their packaged answer would be. So it would be an answer and a follow-up. I would say, why do you sitting in front of me right now, why do you want to be the most powerful person in the world, or the person who's one heartbeat away from being the most powerful person in the world? What is it about your life experience? And then, of course, look, they're going to give you my parents were coal miners and all that stuff. And then you got to push them further, where you're going to find, I want to find out something about them. What is the philosophy behind, I voted this way for this and this and that? It's like what we need to, it's like, why do you think you're qualified to do this? What drives you to want to be part of this awful machine? You know, there's so many good people out there that could get in politics, and good people don't want to be in politics. And that's why we end up with all of this. The average good person out there wants nothing to do with politics these days. And that's sad. And hopefully that'll change. But I don't see it changing anytime soon. So it's almost like we're only going to get broke people. We're only going to get broken people to be part of a broken system. If we had a better system, I think we would get better people. Let's see. Dave, any advice for a libertarian voter at this stage in the game? I still want to support the party, but is this election too close? Well, look, here's the thing with the third party things, and I alluded to this, or maybe I flat out said it in my video with Gary Johnson. Obviously, a third party is not going to win it this year. But for all of these people, including Bernie Sanders, who basically is saying voting for a third party is throwing your vote away, which is so awful for Bernie Sanders, who ran with young people in the Bernie Revolution and small donations. Now he's fully in on big Wall Street money and all of the things that he claimed to hate. They gave him a house. He has a house. He got a new house by a lake or something up in Vermont. So I would say this. Don't be afraid to cast your vote for what you think is right. Ultimately, that would be my answer to anyone asking me any question related to politics. If you think that Donald Trump is the answer, then vote for Donald Trump. And if you think Hillary Clinton's the answer, vote for her. And if you think Gary Johnson is the answer, vote for him. I think you could make it even a stronger case for a libertarian vote, because they need to get to a point where they can play ball with the big guys. And that's why Gary Johnson's so disappointing. As I just said, this was the chance. Imagine if Gary Johnson, forget the Aleppo moment or the stupid tongue thing or all of his little gaffes that have consistently happened, or just in the last day or so, this thing about, if you don't know geography, you won't know which country to bomb. And it could have been slightly a joke. Okay, fine. Imagine if they had a strong, principled libertarian standing up there saying why we should have smaller government, why we should have lower taxes, why we shouldn't be in military adventures all over the world, all of these things. And someone who really felt this guy knows what he's talking about. Well, you know what? At the end of the day, maybe you wouldn't have voted for him this time, but you go, you know what? There's something happening here. It starts with an idea, right? That's what I talk about on the show all the time. And that's why I wanted Gary Johnson in there, just so that people could hear some other ideas one time. He obviously wasn't going to get in the second debate. So I would say if Gary Johnson and the Libertarian parties line up with your beliefs the most, then then vote for him. And don't listen. All the people are going to say, if one of the candidates wins by 1 percentage point, they're going to blame the Libertarians, or they'll blame the Green Party. Blame the fucking guy who blew the election then, or the woman who blew the election. Hey, Dave, why do you think that people who don't live in swing states even vote? With the Electoral College, most states won't matter. Yeah, it's an unfortunate part of our process, what's happened with the Electoral Colleges. Back in the day, part of the reason for Electoral College was that, the candidates couldn't travel everywhere across the country so easily. So basically, if you were running for president, why would you ever go to Montana, let's say, where there's virtually nobody there? Now it's like, we don't need the Electoral College as much, because they wanted Montana to be weighed a little bit more than by the fact they wanted people to actually, the presidential candidates, to show up there, amongst other reasons. Look, so yeah, we have states now like Pennsylvania and like Ohio and like Florida and a couple others that become the key things to this. If you don't live in one of those states, look, first off, anything can happen. I think the polling this year, because of the Trump thing, is so out of whack that I don't trust any of the polls. Because I think a lot of people are afraid to say who they're voting for. And also, don't they do most polls by landlines? I haven't had a landline in 10 years. When was the last time have any of you been polled? Any of you that are watching this on YouTube right now, who are probably relatively young and tech savvy and all that, have any of you ever been polled for an election? I never have. I would love to know if any of you have. Look, we got to fix this system. We got to fix the system. That's what it all comes down to, is fixing the system more than anything else. Let's see. Dave, how do you feel about the whole Russia and Crimea thing? They danced around it in the debate. Should we be harder on them? And how do we corral Russia? So first off, Kaine did, he made a bunch of straw man arguments about what Trump said. He did correctly point out that Trump said that Russia's not going into Crimea. Well, they've been there for 2 years. So he was correct in that accusation. Look, I just wrote my DM, my direct message for the show that will be up in a couple of days, actually. Not the show that you're going to see, not the DM you're going to see tomorrow, Wednesday. But I wrote something about Russia because it's clear to me that Russia is going to start playing a bigger role in the next month, whether it be through the WikiLeaks stuff and is that connected to the Russian government, or whether it's through what's going on in Syria, or the fact that Putin feels like there's some sort of vacuum here that he can enter into as America sort of cedes space in the world. Oddly, the Democrats seem much more hawkish on Russia. Who seems much more against Russia and much more inclined to do something military? It seems like it would be Clinton. And if you listen to what Kaine said, that being said, is Trump possibly cozying up too much to Putin? Possibly. But I think I would have to see some conspiracy that would show me that was actually the case. But the point is, the best way I can answer your question is learn a little bit now, because I think over the next, mark my words on this video right now, I think over the next couple weeks, we're going to be hearing a lot more about Russia, a lot more about how they're interfering in the election and doing military things that we have to get involved in. And it's all going to lead up to right to the election. So be informed about what's going on in Russia. And I should do more myself. I have next week, Kathy Young, who is a great journalist. And she was born in Russia, lived there till she was 16. She's coming on. And we're going to talk about it. We're going to talk about it and be informed, so that when the media starts telling you things about Russia and the politicians start telling you things about Russia, you'll have some answers for yourself, or at least some context to what they're saying. Okay, let's see. This is from someone on Patreon. What did you think about Kaine's prepackaged Rubio-esque one-liners? They were terrible. They were terrible every single time. And Pence, the thing about Pence is he's so freaking calm that's where it comes off as a little insincere, because it's like, show a little emotion. I'm not the most emotional person on earth, so I get it. But when he tried to zing him back, like, oh, you prepared that one well, or oh, there's that line again, or how many times have you said that? He's just too sleepy to do it effectively. But I think most people were thinking that. Yeah, Kaine, congratulations. You said another line that you've said 1,000 times. We all heard it. Let's see. Dave, how do you feel about direct democracy? Are we too ignorant to be trusted? So I assume by direct democracy, you're just talking about one person, one vote, whoever gets the most votes, in the period. I think it's very hard to change a system so drastically that's existed for so long. And as screwy as our system is, and I say it's screwed up all the time, I think there are incremental ways to change it to make it better. But if you tried something that was so profoundly different, who knows what comes out on the other side. That's not necessarily an argument completely against it, but I think we do have to be leery of, we have something that's pretty good here, and something that, as I say all the time, that most people on earth are very jealous of. Most people, even when they're in Europe, when they're mocking America, they kind of do miss some of our liberty and are jealous of our free speech and certain things that we have here. So I would be leery of changing everything so quickly. Also, I guess at some level, there is a risk that then the mob could fully be in charge of everything at once. And there's a risk in that. And the way that there's a beauty to our Constitution. And I hope you guys had a chance to watch my show with Randy Barnett, constitutional law professor at Georgetown, about 2 weeks ago, where we really dug into why the Constitution is such a great document, and why our separation of powers, and why they're so effective, and why our checks and balances work, and all of these things, and that the executive branch is getting more powerful and more powerful and more powerful. And that's not the way it's supposed to work, but every president sucks more power out. And we got to watch out for that. Let's see. Somebody said, get Phil DeFranco on to talk about YouTube Heroes program. So did you guys see this thing? This is a little bit, we can get away from the debate also if you want, but we'll veer back and forth if you want to ask some other things. I don't know if you guys saw this, but there was this big thing, the YouTube Heroes program, where they want regular people watching YouTube to be heroes and to mass flag videos you don't like and warn them about language and all this other crap. And they got a ton of shit for it. Last I saw, it had something like maybe 10,000 likes and 500,000 dislikes. Phil DeFranco was talking about it. My friend Chris Reagan and a whole bunch of other people were mocking it. Yeah, talk about the mob being in charge. Why would you allow just everybody to start mass flagging things? That just because they're offended or they don't like the language or whatever. What you'd end up doing is you'd in effect be creating a system that incentivizes people to shut down free speech. The more things you shut down, you knew there was going to be a point system. I mean, really awful and misguided stuff. Yes, the road to hell is paved with good intentions, but you got to watch out for those intentions. Let's see. Do either of these choices stand a chance at a second term at their age? So that's a great question. Trump is 70, Hillary's 69. Without being conspiratorial, there are issues related to Hillary's health. It's fairly obvious. That video on 9/11, she truly collapsed. Maybe it was a combination of being sick and being on medication, and it was hot out and exhaustion and all of that stuff. That being said, she full on, that wasn't a stumble and wasn't a trip. Her body was lifeless and limp, and they carried her into a car. So there is some relation to that. Trump, he's been eating rich food his whole life. He could have gout. You got to watch out for that. They call it the rich person's disease, I think they call it. gout. So look, at 74, they'd both be 74 basically by the end of the first term. A 74-year-old, there's probably a lot of reasons. Not that 74, you can still be in the prime of your life and doing all kinds of great things with your retirement years. And yeah, you have a whole life ahead of you. And with technology and everything else, I mean, I have Zoltan Istvan on the show tomorrow, who's a transhumanist, talking about medicine and technology. I think he said that he believes there are people right now, like Ray Kurzweil, who you guys probably know, who's written about the singularity of Google, who believes he's going to live forever, and he's alive right now. So I don't want to get hung up on the number as much as this could have been an important duo that we saw tonight, because perhaps something could happen to one of these candidates. And forgetting that, that the country's so polarized that I would venture to say that either one of them will be a one-term president. That would be my guess. Hey, Dave, you said we can't change the system profoundly, but we can. Do you think a constitutional convention would be a good thing? It personally scares me, but I think we need it. So yes, of course, I'm not saying we can't. This is how beautiful the Constitution is. They wrote in ways that you can drastically alter the system. What I'm saying is, I don't know that a system has lasted as long as ours, with all the success ours has, and then suddenly changed in a very profound way for the better. I could be wrong. If I am wrong, please let me know. So we could have a constitutional convention and really try to change some things massively. I don't know that I would necessarily be against that. It's clear after this election, whoever wins, we got to really change some things. We need better public discourse. We really strongly need better education, because that's what everything comes down to, not just our election process, but every social issue that we're having, an economic issue, and everything comes down to education. A smart society of people won't get caught in the easy traps that the media and the politicians want to trap you in. We also need either public funding of elections, or more than anything else, if you're watching this right now, after this election, how about you don't give money to a politician anymore? I mean, anybody. All those people that gave all that money to Bernie. Bernie, in effect, now is not in effect, he's backing Hillary, who has an incredible amount of mainstream, Wall Street, all of that money, right? So don't give any of them their money. You have to starve them. That's what I was talking about in my video with Gary Johnson, is put these guys on alert. There is nothing in our Constitution that says we can only have two parties. We should have more parties, and it should be funded publicly so they're on equal footing, and there will always be cheaters and there will always be ways to cheat. But we can do better, but starve them of money. Stop going right now. You think about this. Obama has, 4 months left on his presidency or so, something like that. Think how many more fundraisers he's going to go to in the course of that. Many, for $30,000 a head or whatever it is. Now, I get it. Those people, they want to rub elbows with them. They want power and all that stuff. No, stop giving them money. It's the only way that's going to ever stop anything. Okay, let's see. Somebody said we just gave away the internet. We're screwed. Yeah, the big thing this week, ICANN. I mean, basically, Obama ceded control of the internet to the United Nations, which didn't get much play at all. Unfortunately, it got virtually no play on mainstream media. It's unclear to me exactly how this is going to affect the internet. I hope not much. But now that it's controlled by the UN is a hugely corrupt organization that does some good things, but does a lot of bad things too. And now countries like China and Saudi Arabia, and plenty of other countries with terrible human rights violations that aren't subject to our First Amendment of free speech, are going to have more control over the internet, and the United States is going to have less. This thing's been chugging along pretty well, the internet. It has changed the world. It has had massive effect on connecting people and connecting us right now, and causing revolutions in Egypt and all kinds of other things. So did it need to be fixed or handed away? I don't think so. So I think it was a bad thing, and I hope I'm wrong about that. Dave, do you think a centrist, sane party could emerge from this? I hope so. I hope so, and that's why I want more parties, because I think what could happen is if you took the left, right, and you said, all right, if the Democrats split in half, so you'd have the sort of more mainstream Democrats, meaning like the Hillary wing of it, whether you like Hillary or not, and then you had the progressive, so I would say the far left. If they split into two, and then you took the right, and you had the mainstream Republicans, now I guess I would consider that the Trump version of it right now, and then you have the libertarians, the small government guys, and maybe it's three parties for them. Maybe it's the Trump people, the conservatives, and the libertarians. They could be splitting into three. that I think what you would find is that the people in the center, the centrist Democrats and the centrist conservatives, or Republicans, whatever you want to call them, they would come together and you would have a new party, a party filled with people based on logic and reason that would say, we don't have to agree on everything. We don't have to agree on everything, but we can try to find some answers together and not demonize everybody. That's what we desperately need. And I think it's possible that we'll get it after this, but people have to stay engaged after this thing. You know, I know the election feels like it sucks and it's fun at some level and all that. But you know, the question is what happens after? Does everyone just feel like this has been like this year-long like suck fest and we're just all exhausted after, or will people stay engaged? I hope it's the latter, obviously. Why didn't Kaine bring up Pence's distaste for science? So look, Kaine, I guess I was a little light on Pence, but it was Kaine's fault because he didn't bring up any of the science stuff, which he should have. And he didn't bring up any of the LGBT stuff, which he absolutely should have. Those would have been clear issues that the average person that's somewhat of a centrist, and even a moderate Republican that believes in science, and guess what, they do exist, and a moderate Republican that believes in gay rights, and guess what, they exist too, would have not been pleased with Pence's answers onto that stuff. So Kaine really missed an opportunity on that. I think he really dropped it. I don't know if he was waiting for the moderator to do it or what. All right, this is from Patreon. As a non-American, I'm interested in how invested you are in the Electoral College. It seems to me from a small country as Sweden, if you elect someone for a federal position, every vote should weigh equal. So I kind of talked about this already. So if you're just jumping on now, just back up about 10 or 15 minutes. There are reasons that having such a giant country and the fear of being ruled by the mob basically is the reason we have it. The electoral system is very flawed. And not only that, but let's not forget that our political parties have flawed processes, which is why the Democrats have superdelegates, because they wanted to make sure that they could override the will of the people if they have to. The Republicans don't even have that. The Republicans have some other things in place where things could go to second and third, fourth ballots, et cetera, et cetera. But those are not legal things that have anything to do with our Constitution. Those are party things. So we have to get the power away from the parties and hand it back to the people. That's a lot of peas. Do you see a millennial party popping up over the next 4 years, born of disgruntled Bernie supporters and neocon Democrats not reflecting their values? Millennials on pace to be the largest voting group. That's a good one. I mean, all of the questions, all the stuff you guys are asking me about third party, all comes down to how engaged people want to be. So if millennials want to be the first generation in a while to say, fuck this, we got to get our voices heard, we got to start a new party, and we don't like this wing of the Democratic Party because of Hillary, and we don't like this wing of the Republican Party because of Trump, and if no alternative shows up and that there was a real younger party, I think that would be interesting. Look, there's also a risk in having something that was really the millennial party of young people, because as a general rule, I think older people can give us wisdom, and people that have lived beyond us and seen things change, and history does repeat itself. So I think, you know, a party that was just designed for young people, there's a certain risk in that. And I think that was a little bit of my problem with the Bernie stuff, because it was a little bit based on feelings, not necessarily facts, you know, like the free college thing. It sounds great. And if I had been going to college this year, I would have been screaming for free college, but somebody does have to pay for it. So, you know, there's a lot of stuff like that. But yeah, I think anything that brings more voices in would be good. Dave, when you say the left and the right, can you explain them in your own words? So I should have done more on this in general, because I do say these words a lot and people ask me a lot, and they mean different things in different countries. And I didn't even realize that so much until this past year, where I hear it from people all over, is that it means a little something different if you're in the UK, and it means a little something different if you're in Canada and in plenty of other places. Generally speaking, in America, what it means is if you're on the left, you're thought of as liberal, meaning generally you're socially open, you're socially liberal, right? So if you're thought you're for gay rights or for what are thought to be women's rights, you're pro-choice, things like that. Also, what that comes with, for a series of reasons, is bigger government, because you want government to do those things. You want government to give gay people certain rights. You want government to protect the right of for women to choose, and et cetera, et cetera. So it's sort of bigger government and socially liberal. And on the right, it's thought of conservatism. Don't change things that fast. Have a certain respect for what happened in front of you. And you should be for smaller government and for states' rights. Generally, that's the left-right thing in America. It's different in all kinds of countries. As a general rule, I've always thought of myself as someone on the left because I'm liberal. So if you were to go through every liberal talking point that there is, usually I line up with those liberal things. What's happening, unfortunately, is that the left is becoming illiberal. So they haven't really been for logic and reason, and they haven't really been tolerant of the other, and they've put everybody in this oppression Olympics thing that we talk about all the time. These are not liberal ideas. And unfortunately, in some ways, I find myself agreeing more with moderate conservatives than I find myself agreeing with people on the left. Actually, I shouldn't say that's unfortunate. I don't mind it. But it's just an interesting place to be. And we're seeing the fringes on both sides get further. And I think that is, to go to the question that was a couple before, I think that is what could cause sort of a new center situation. So there you go on that. I did this last week, but so right now, I got CNN on the back. They have the Clinton campaign chairman, John Podesta. Wonder, you think he's saying Kaine or Pence did better? What do you think? I'm going to guess he said that Kaine did better. Now, quick, let's see what's going on Fox. Do you think that they might have something similar happening right now? You've got Megyn Kelly, and she is talking to a Hillary Clinton campaign spokesman. This guy, I think his name's John Messina, maybe. I'm going to guess he's saying that Tim Kaine did better. And then let's go over to MSNBC, and it's Chuck Todd. And I'm going to guess he's saying Tim Kaine did better too, because we know who you're voting for, Chuck Todd. I don't see who he's talking to just yet, because it's just on him. All right, let's see. You know what? We'll knock out a couple more questions, and then I think we're going to cut this one a little short because it was relatively uneventful. But I always welcome your comments. I love hearing from you guys. I like when you push back on me in a fair way. When you just, he's a fucking idiot, that fucking moron. I don't get much from that. But the others I totally enjoy, and I love having these conversations with you guys. Let's see. Oh, I should mention before I wrap up, I'll give you a moment for the last couple questions here. You guys know we are fan funded, so if you want to join us on Patreon, and we do all kinds of things with t-shirts and mugs and one-on-one hangouts and Google Hangouts and a whole bunch of other stuff. And there's a Patreon app where I chat with people and like a WhatsApp kind of thing. It's patreon.com/Rubin Report. And if you want to make a one-time donation to the show and help us build it out, if you dig what we're doing, it's RubinReport.com/donate. And I will knock out just a couple more. Somebody said, I can't see how the whole internet would suffer under UN control. Internet providers in countries who are not game for limiting net neutrality and imposing censorship will continue to resist it. I guess purely at the intellectual level, probably what you said is correct. The issue is that what happens, the UN has a lot of countries that do a lot of bad things that are in positions of power. Libya and Syria or Saudi Arabia have both been on the Human Rights Council as chair countries. So they've done some strange things there. My bigger point would be that the internet's been working. Not if you have Time Warner, but besides if you have Time Warner. The internet's basically been working, so why did we decide to make this move? It just seems like we put ourselves in a precarious position for no reason. So that would be my bigger thing. Let's see, Dave, who does Trump parallel in the Star Wars universe if Clinton is Palpatine? Let's see. Well, if Clinton is Palpatine, I think that's a bit of a jump, but I've seen that picture, and it's a great picture of Clinton as Palpatine. Clinton, let me think for a second here. Who would Trump be? Well, by rhetoric alone, right? Just by rhetoric, he has to be someone on the dark side. I'm trying to think of something clever with immigration here. Something with immigration related to Ewoks. Who would Trump be? Who's Trump? Trump's Jabba the Hutt, right? Trump is Jabba the Hutt. They have a similar skin tone. And, he's running his big palace, and he's got a bunch of sycophants around him, and he has expensive things hanging on the wall, like Carbonite Han Solo. So Trump is Jabba the Hutt. And Hillary sort of good turned evil, but maybe could turn good at the end. Does that make her Darth Vader? I don't know. Palpatine was purely evil. I don't think Clinton is purely evil, like evil. Somebody said, do you get the full amount that is donated from Patreon? they take a very small percentage. I think maybe it's 5%-ish. Yeah, it's a small percentage. So we do get the bulk of it, and you guys have given us a budget to do the show as we see fit. We got a couple interesting things coming over the next few weeks that I'm going to announce soon, and I'm excited to tell you guys about a few ways that we're going to try to expand the show and some other things that we're going to do. We launched fan funded in June. We really didn't start the show till July, so it's only been 3-4 months, and we had to get our business set and our health insurance. And I got to do stuff with a company and a lot of stuff that I'd rather someone else do. Point is, we got all that ironed out now, and now we can figure out how to expand. And we hugely appreciate you guys that have jumped in and do that. Okay, and many people are saying that Trump is Jar Jar Binks. He's more Jabba. Come on, he's more Jabba. You can't see Trump with Melania like with a little chain around her neck, sitting there, and he's eating like blah, 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 blah. Okay, that was my Jabba impression. Not great. All right, I think we're going to. And I'll do one last one on a hopeful note. But this has sort of been a theme tonight. Advice for first-time and young voters: vote, get your voice heard. Something like 40% of Americans vote, and that's in a good election. Get out there and be heard. If this is frustrating to you and you don't understand why we've been left in this situation, then go be heard. And more than anything else, and maybe even more than voting, although that is very important, don't be afraid to share what you think. It's okay to be wrong sometimes. It's okay to have your mind changed, but don't be afraid to share what you think, because your thoughts are as valid as anyone else's. And yes, you're going to change. I'm sure there's a litany. As I've said many times, I've been liberal since I was in 7th grade, and I first heard the term, and I thought, that's what I am, a liberal person, sort of looking out for others. But my thoughts have evolved, and a lot of the things that I can argue why I'm for as a liberal, I can now argue for as from a libertarian perspective as well, which is why I would more consider myself a classical liberal, which is very much in line with libertarianism. But again, let's not get too caught up in the terms. But don't be afraid to be heard. If you're not a bigot, don't be afraid when your friend calls you a bigot. And don't befriend people and lose friends over this stuff. Try to be out there and put yourself out there and be brave. And a lot of people are saying that we should expand the show. We're working on it. But if you want to help us do it, RubinReport.com/donate. Anyway, it's been fun as always. Thank you guys. We got a new episode dropping tomorrow. I mentioned my guest before. It's Zoltan Istvan, he's actually running as president for like a third party called the Transhumanist Party. Obviously not going to win it this time, but a really interesting guy. And it's all about science and medicine and how technology can change us. And that those are the issues of the future that we didn't talk anything about. AI or medical science or cloning or any of these things that are going to be so massive in short amount of time. We're going to Mars or all this stuff. They're bickering. I'm like, you said this. And it's like, oh, grow up. Anyway, thanks, guys. Been fun. And we'll do it again soon.